Erev Shabbos Kodesh. It is Erev Shabbos Hagadol, the ninth day of Chodesh Nisan. And today, Be'ezras Hashem, we are going to be covering both Vav Amud Aleph and Vav Amud Beis, Vav Amud Aleph, which we did not get a chance to do yesterday. And we're catching up, Baruch Hashem, Erev Shabbos today, Daf Vav Amud Aleph and Amud Beis, two Mishnayos. Each of them works out pagination-wise, covering the Amud. So we really have two sugyas that we're going to be talking about today with regards to what happens if you donated money, Shekalim, or other assets, money, korbanos, and there is leftover. That is more or less what we're going to be talking about, and all of the discussions therein. And that, Be'ez Hashem, is going to take us really Vav Amud Aleph and Vav Amud Beis pretty much perfectly. So we are right at the top of Vav Amud Aleph, where the Mishnah tells us Halacha Gimel Mas Nisin, Hamechanes Maos, somebody that is saving up coins for their Maseches shekel, meaning they're putting pennies away. Va'amar, and he says, Harei elu le-shikli, this is for my shekel. Beis Shammai says, Moisran Nedava, if there are extra pennies there, after he says, these are for Shekalim. So if there's extras there, what does he do with them? So it says Beis Shammai, the rest of that goes as a Nedava, it goes to buy voluntary Korbanos Ola that are not part of the Korban Tamid, because for the Korban Tamid, for Maseches shekel, everybody has to give exactly the same amount. So you cannot give extra. That is the opinion of Beis Shammai. Beis Hillel, and Beis Hillel says, Moisran Chulin. The extras, the excess are Chulin. They don't go anywhere. They go back to him. He picks up a pile of coins and he says, "These are for Maseches shekel. The extras are not for Maseches shekel. It's not chal on that." He says, however, if he says she'avi mehem shikli, I will bring my shkalim from these monies. Shavim shamoyser chulin. Everybody there agrees. Even Beis Shammai agrees that the remainders, the leftovers, they are chulin, because he's not saying all of this is for shkalim. He's saying I will take my shkalim from here. So however much that is, the rest of it would be Moser Shekalim, and that is Chulin. Says the Mishnah, Elu lechatasi, these are for my chatas. Somebody is saving up money to purchase their korban chatas, and he says, these monies are for my chatas. Shavin, everybody agrees, Shah Moser Nedava, that the leftovers are going to be a Nedava, the leftover monies that he has from this, from the purchase. He purchases his nedava, his chatas, and the rest is going to be as a korban nedava, meaning it's going to be given over as a voluntary korban ola. She'evi mehem chatasi, if he says, I'm going to bring my chatas from these monies, shavim sha'amoser chulin, everybody agrees that the leftovers are chulin. Amar Rabbi Shimon. Says Rabbi Shimon the following: Ma ben shkalim lechatas. What is the difference between the shkalim and the chatas? Meaning, Beis Hillel has a difference of opinion. According to Beis Hillel, if he says these are for my shekel, so then the leftover coins are chulin. But if he says these coins are for my chatas, the leftover coins are for a korban ola. Says Rabbi Shimon, Ella shel shkalim yesh lem kitzva. Shkalim have a definite amount. It has a set limit of how much money there is. Well, chatas ain't la kitzva. But with the chatas, there is no kitzva. Meaning, it could end up being that you pay a lot of money for your chatas, or a little bit of money for the chatas. Depends on the animal. Depends on the price of animals. But with regards to shkalim, it is an exact amount. Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yehuda says a different explanation. Af l'shkalim ein lahem kitzva. Shkalim also doesn't have a definite amount. What do you mean? It doesn't have a definite amount. When the Jewish people came up from Bavel, meaning they came back Shivas Tzion to build the second Beis Hamikdash, they came with their shkalim as darkonis, as those gold coins. That was the darkon was their coin. Chazru lishkol salaim, and then when they got back to Eretz Yisrael, they switched into salaim again. They switched the currency. Chazru lishkol tvain. And then later they switched to Tevine as their currency. And then Bikshu Lishkol Dinarim, they wanted at some point in time to pay it in dinarim, meaning which is a half Tevine, And they did not accept that from them. They didn't accept a coin that small. Meaning the Chacham said, no, we don't accept coinage that is that small. Rabbi Shimon says, Rabbi Shimon, Afal Pichen, even if that is so, Yad Kulam Shave. You're right, Rabbi Yehuda, that the coins changed, but Yad Kulan Shave, but everybody still had to pay the same amount. So it's true that in every generation there were different coins that were used, but as opposed to achatas, where the value of the animal fluctuates, the value of the coin relative to everybody else's coin is the same. Aval chatas, ze maybe b'sela, ze maybe b'shtayim. One person brings the chatas for a sela, and one person brings the chatas for two slime. V'ze maybe shalosh, and somebody else will bring for three. Meaning that is a fundamentally variable amount. Oh, we're going to send the link out. Hold on one second. There we go. Cool. That is a fundamentally variable amount, and therefore says Rabbi Shimon that it would seem to be that is the case. Now, there is an enormous machlokas here between the Rambam and almost everybody else. The Rambam was of the opinion that you always gave the Maseches shekel, meaning half of whatever normative coin there was. That was the din. That was whatever the standard currency was. You gave half of that that coin. However, the Ravid and many of the other Rishonim argue that as long as it was a definite amount, the Beis Hamikdash could set it to be whatever price they wanted. Meaning, it was a Maseches shekel according to the Torah. But if the Gizbarim of the Beis Hamikdash said, okay, it's going to cost us more money to run the Beis Hamikdash this year, and the coins that we have are too small, so then we're going to set the amount as larger. Now, when Rabbi Shimon is saying that, when Rabbi Yehuda is saying in the Mishnah that they didn't accept the smaller coins, so according to the Rambam, that meant they couldn't accept there wasn't enough money. They couldn't accept that half half dinar coin. They said no, you needed to have more money in order to run the Beis Hamikdash. And according to the Ravid and the other Rishonim, it meant that they didn't want to deal with such small change. That wasn't covered to deal with such small change. But in Chami, meaning they wanted to pay using those coins, even though the amount of money was arguably considerably larger. That is an important machlokes within Maseches Shekalim in general. Says the Gemara as follows: Hamachanes, somebody that is gathering their coins together. Rabbi Yossi b'shem Rabbi Lazar, says Rabbi Yossi in the name of Rabbi Lazar, ma pligin, what exactly is their disagreement about? B'mechanes prot, where he is collecting the money bit by bit. That's where they are arguing. Aval ba'omer el l'shikli, but if a person says that these are for my Maseches shekel, kol ima moidi sheha moitron nedava. Everybody is going to agree that the excess is going to be as an adava, meaning it's only if you don't know how many coins you have. You put them one into the pushka, the next into the pushka, the next into the pushka. That's where you're going to have a machlokes. But if you have a handful of coins and you pick them up and say this is for my Maseches shekel, then even both Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel are going to agree that this is as a nadava. Reb Chia or Reb Chizkiah, Rabbi Biba b'shem Reb Lazar, there is a different version of this Reb Lazar that explains opposite. Ma pligin, what is the machlokes? B'mechanes pratot, when you put one coin into the pushka after the next, meaning over a long period of time. Aval, however, ba'omer elu l'shikli, but if you grab a handful of coins and you say these are for my shekel, kule alma moidi shamoitzun chulin, everybody would agree that the leftovers are going to be chulin. Because if he picks them up without knowing how many coins there are, he's clearly indicating that he doesn't care to count it up. Meaning it's the opposite argument. I'm not caring to count it up. Whatever this is going to my shekel. It's not for the shekel, so then it has to go for an adava. But if the argument on the opposite direction is that if you put a coin one after the next, so there is an argument to say that he thought that he had exactly the right amount and he didn't realize that he had extra. So you have the machlokes in both directions. The Gemara tries to now figure out which side of this debate is correct. Amar Rabbi Chia or Rabbi Chizkiah, Masins Messiah le Rav Bibi. The Mishnah seems to support the opinion of Rav Bibi, the second the second approach here. Why? Ditnan, because the Mishnah says, Amar Rabbi Shimon. Says Rabbi Shimon, Ma bein shkalim lechatas. What is the difference between shkalim and chatas? Elasha shkalim yesh lem kitzva v'chatas in la kitzva, because shkalim have a definite amount and chatas does not have a definite amount. Ma anon kaimin. So what are we dealing with in this case? Let's try to figure this out. If you're talking about a case where you say, I'm going to bring my shkalim from them, meaning you're saying I'm grabbing my shkalim and I'm bringing my shkalim from here. Everybody would agree that the leftovers are going to be chulin. And if you say I'm going to bring my chatas from this, everybody would agree that the leftovers are chulin. Here we have to say that what we are dealing with is these are for my Maseches HaShekel and shkalim al yedei shekivtzan min haTorah. And since the Torah has told you what the limit of it is, then that which is more than what the Torah is obligating you, meaning more than what that amount is, the cutoff amount, that is going to be chulin. Chatas al she'ein kitzva min haTorah, and the chatas, which does not have a definite limit from the Torah, that's where it is going to be. That is where it is going to be given as an adava. Okay, says the Gemara. The Mishnah seems then to support the opinion of Rabbi Bibi and is against Rabbi Yossi. However, the Gemara is now going to attempt to defend Rabbi Yossi's opinion. Ma avid la Rabbi Yossi b'shem Rabbi Lazar. How is Rabbi Yossi b'shem Rabbi Eliezer? Which I'm not sure why the Gemara now says Eliezer as opposed to Rabbi Lazar. It seems sometimes it's Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Eliezer, and in the Yerushalmi sometimes that is those are confused. Both called the name Rabbi Lazar. But what does Rabbi Yossi in the name of Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Lazar, say? So he says, Pasal he's going to explain it, b'mechanis pratrat uche beisila, that he is putting it in coin by coin, and this is the opinion of Beisila. But didn't we say that the leftovers of the shkalim are going to be chulin? So we said, no, Pasal b'mechanis pratrat uche beisila. He's going to explain that this is according to that the Mishnah is talking about somebody that collects coins, and that this is the opinion of Beis Hillel, but meaning in all the cases, he when we say the case of grabbing the shkalim and saying these are for my shekel and these are for my chatas, so in all of these cases, what we are talking about is where you put it in coin by coin, and this is the opinion of Beis Hillel. And now the Gemara is going to is now going to argue with or deal with the following case within this opinion of Rabbi Yossi explaining the Mishnah. V'hatanenan, and didn't we learn? And this is a question of whether or not this parenthesis is supposed to be part of the Gemara. V'hatanenan, didn't we also learn Moser Asir Sa'ifa Chulin, that the leftovers of the Asir Sa'ifa are going to be Chulin? And in that case, Rabbi Yossi is going to explain that is also talking about and we're going to see that case in a little bit. Meaning, in all of these cases, according to the way that Rabbi Yossi, in the name of Rabbi Lazar, is going to be learning that, is all of these cases are talking about where you are putting coin by coin, and since you are putting them in coin by coin, and you say and you say that these are for my shkalim, everybody's going to agree that Moshe Nadava, that you are dedicating the rest of it as a Nadava because you know exactly how much you put in the pushka. That's his argument. Since you know exactly how much you put in the pushka, in all of these cases, that it would be a Nadava is according to Beis Hillel that you're putting it in coin by coin. Okay, says the Gemara. Somebody that he put out his shekel, assuming that he is chayiv, meaning that he needs to give it. V'nimtza she'ena chayiv, and then he found out that he's not chayiv. For example, he was under the impression that he had not yet contributed to Maseches shekel. He had forgotten. And he's like, oh my gosh, it's almost going to be Pesach. I really need to give a Maseches shekel. And he didn't realize that he already sent it when the guy came around like months ago. So what does he do now? So says the Gemara, Loy Kiddush. It is not considered to be Kodesh. Because according to the opinion, says the opinion of Moshe, because according to the opinion of Beis Hillel, if you did it by accident, it's the same as Moser Shekalim, and it would be Chulin. Meaning, because you absolutely had no idea that you were no longer chayav, so you thought that this should go, but you're wrong. It's not true. And then says the Mishnah, says the Gemara, hamafresh shnaim. If you took out 2 coins, v'savashu chayav shnaim, and you thought you were chayav in 2 coins, v'nimtza she'ena chayav elachad, and then you realize that you were only chayav for 1. Osa sheni ma avidla. So what do you do with the second coin? Meaning, in the first case, hold on 1 second. There we go. So in the first case, you weren't chayiv at all. There wasn't anything to talk about. But the second case is much similar to a Moser HaShekel where you thought that you were chayiv. So Osa Sheni Ma Avidla. So this second coin, what do you do with it? Says the Gemara as follows. Says the Gemara as follows. Ma Avidla. Nishman min hada. We learn from this. Ha mafresh chatas v'sover shu chayiv, a person that is mafresh their chatas, a person that is mafresh their chatas v'sover shu chayiv and thinks that he is chayiv. V'nimtza she'ena chayiv, and he then realized that he is not chayiv. Loy kitcha has not made this animal kaddish at all. Ha mafresh time, and if he separated 2 animals that he thought he was chayiv in 2 chatas, and thought that he had to bring 2 chatas, and then and then he realized he's not chayiv. What do we do with the second one? It has to graze until it gets a mum, and then it's sold, and then the money is going to be used for voluntary kavanas. These are going to be used as a nedava as well. Ata elu. But then the Gemara then rejects this comparison between the chatas and the shkalim by leaving it with the question. But here, how could you say that there is these? Meaning, when you say this is for my Maseches shekel, as opposed to v'ka'hech ata omer elu, how would you say that this is these are for my shekel? Hold on a sec. Yeah. So the Korban Eidah explains here. Stama deshas parich ich kamart de hasheni lenadava. How do you say the second one is for a nadava? Lo yehi ela kenoitel harbe mas. It's like you're taking a ton of money. I mean, you're picking up a whole handful of coins. But omer hari elu lishikli. These are for my shekel. Did not mutar lechulin. That the remainder here is going to be chulin, meaning if you make this comparison, then the Mishnah doesn't make any sense. So the difference between 1 coin and 2 coins, between 2 coins and 100 coins, is the same lahalacha, because that's the din of the Mishnah, and therefore we have to reject this comparison to the chatas. If a person takes 2 coins, the Gemara concludes, if a person takes 2 coins and he was only chayav 1 of them, so the fact that he was wrong means the second one is chulin, it is not for an nadava. Okay, next case, at the 2 dots, says the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda says that with regards to the shkalim, ein laim the kitzvah. So now we're going to talk about the different coins that they use at different points in time. Darkonos dinarim. Darkonos are called golden dinarim. That's that's what they were functionally. Chazul lishkal salaim, and then they switched to salaim. They used their currency as salaim. Kishmu'an, and a seller is as they sound. It is the seller coin. And then chazul lishkal tevain, and then they switched to tevain as their currency. And Tvon is a Pali slime, they are half slime coins. And then Bishkul Ishkal Dinarim, they wanted to use Dinarim, meaning the and the Gemara then tells us dinarim are called keratin. They are a quarter of the slime, says the Tikkun Chatin, as opposed to the darkonim, which was a full dinar. The dinar that we're talking about here is a quarter seller. It's a much smaller coin. And the Mishnah then says that they didn't. The Chacham didn't want to accept those coins. So min hada. From this din of the Mishnah, what they learnt is the following. The pasuk tells us, this is the pasuk in Nehemiah, "Ve'hemadnu aleinu mitzvahs la'seis aleinu shlishis hashekel b'shana la'avodas beis Elokeinu." That we took upon ourselves to give 1/3 of the currency of each year for the Bedek Habayis, for for that which is needed for the Beis Hamikdash. From this conversation about the discussions of the coins, so the Gemara knows that the minhag was that the Gemara is explaining that that the din of the Mishnah comes from v'mbanu alem mitzvahs lates shlishis shekel b'shana la'avodas beis Elokeinu, that they gave a 3 times they would give the half shekel in the year. Now, this is the base of the minhag. The Gra points out, it's quoted in the Tikkun Chatin, and there are more passages like this, that when we give our machatzis shekel, zeichel machatzis shekel, that we do this with 3 coins of the currency of today. So minhag Ashkenaz is that you give 3 $half coins. And that's why we have the bowl with the $half coins, that you put whatever money you want, at least the value of $3 $half. You take out the $3 $half and then you put them back in. You make that as your contribution. Says the Gemara, Reb Chilkiah b'shem Rabbi Acha, Reb Chilkiah in the name of Rabbi Acha teaches, Mikan shetzarich adam l'shalish shikla gimel pamim b'shana. From here you learn that you have to give shkalim 3 times a year. This is our minhag. Mikan she'ein madrichin al tzibur yosim l'gimel pamim b'shana. And from this you also learn that you cannot ask for collections more than 3 times in the year. So somebody that's coming, somebody that is coming around collecting for the yeshiva, for the shul, for the beis medrash, for the kollel, for the Tamil Shabbos, I mean, you're only allowed to collect for each institution maximum 3 times a year. Says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Abin, says Rabbi Abin, Mikan Gimel Salaim, Mikan L'Shalish Kupas. From here we learn about the three sa'in, and Mikan L'Shalish Kupas, and from here we learn the 3 boxes. Mikan Le Gimel Hafrashos, and from here we learn about 3 times a year that we are taking the Hafrashos, that we would withdraw the money. All the 3s, everything that we do for Shekalim is 3s, and that comes from this pasuk in Nehemiah. Ksiv, now the Gemara is going to discuss some of the time of the crow. What's the reason for the machatzis shekel, with a number of options here, 4 options here. Ksiv zei nukala over ala pikudim. This is what you have to give, all that passed through the counting, the census that they did in the midbar. So Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Nechemiah, Chad Amar, one of them says, "Lefi shechatu be'machzis hayom yitnu machzis shekel." Because the Jewish people sinned with the Egel Azav at the midday, we have to give a machzis shekel. Yitnu machzis shekel. The other one says, "Lefi shechata be'sheish shas," because they sinned in 6 hours of the day. Yitnu machzis shekel de avad shisa garmisin. Because they sinned 6 hours into the day, they should give a machatzis shekel whose weight is 6 garmisid. That was the value of the shekel in the days of Moshe Rabbeinu. Rabbi Yoshua Bey Rabbi Nechem B'Shem Ribaz, that's Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Rabbi Yoshua in the name of Rabbi, the son of Rabbi Nechem, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, explains the fisha over al Aseres Hadibros. They transgressed the Aseres Hadibros. They have to give asara gera, which is also the value of machatzis shekel, right? Because the pasuk says esrim gera shekel, that the shekel was 20 gera, so 10 gera is machatzis shekel, and that is to atone for violating the asara sadibros. Meaning all of these are related to the egel hazahav. Says the Gemara further, Rabbi Brechia, Rabbi Levi, B'Shem, Rabbi Shimon Lakish, they tell us Lefisha Machru B'Chayre Shel Rachel Be'Esrim Kesef, that not only are we talking about Maseches Shekel to atone for the Egel HaZahav, but also for the Mechira of Yosef. They sold the Bechor of Yosef for 20 pieces of silver. And therefore, whenever we do a pidyon aben, we have to do it with 20 pieces of silver, and that is to atone for the sale of Yosef. Rabbi Pinchas b'shem Rabbi Levi teaches. Rabbi Pinchas in the name of Rabbi Levi is teaching because they sold the bechor of Rachel, firstborn of Rachel Imenu, for 20 pieces of silver. Mehem taba, and each one received a taba, which is 2 dinarim, as his share. Therefore, everybody has to give his shekel as a tav'ah, which comes out to the Maseches or shekel in at least in the days of Rabbi Pinchas ben Levi, depending on the variation of the codes. Meaning that there is both a kapara for the Egel HaZahav as well as a kapara for the Mechiras Yosef in giving the Maseches shekel. Onto the Mishnah at the top of Vav Amud Beis. Turning over the page here. Okay. Says the Gemara at the top of Vav Amud Beis, Halacha Daled Masisin. The Mishnah says, Mosar Shekalim Chulin. The leftovers of the Shekalim are Chulin, as we discussed in the previous Mishnah. Mosar Asir Sa'efa, which is what we referred to in the middle of the previous Amud. Mosar Asir Sa'efa, what about the leftovers of the Asir Sa'efa? Asir Sa'efa was the mincha that the Asir Sa'efa was the fine flour that was made into menachos. So Mosar Asir Sa'efa, Mosar Kanizav and Kanizavas, the Kaniyodos, and the leftovers of the Asir Sa'efa and korbanos for a zav and a zava and a yoladas, chatas for ashamos, and any chatas and any asham, all of these korbanos, most of the nadava, all of these leftovers are all going to be in the nadava. You set aside extra funds, and you said, I'm going to use this for my chatas or for my Asir Sa'efa. All of that is in the nadava. The leftover funds are used for that. Zaklal, this is the rule. Kol shu ba l'shem chatas umishum ashma Moisaran Nadava. The rule says, the Mishnah is anything that is for the sake of a chatas or an asham, anything that's left over is going to be a nadava. Moisar ola la'ola, anything that is left over as an ola is going to be used as an ola. Moisar mincha lemincha, leftover mincha is going to be used for a mincha. Moisar shlamim l'shlamim, anything that is left over as a shlamim is going to be used for a shlamim. And now, throwback to the middle of Maseches Psachim, Moisar Pesach l'shlamim, any leftover monies for a Korban Pesach is also going to be used for shlamim. Moisar nazirim l'nazirim, any leftover money that the Beis Hamikdash had set aside for nazirim that couldn't afford it would be used for nazirim, for other nazirim. But Moisar nazir l'nadava. But if a nazir says, this is my korban, this is for my korban nazir, and there was leftover for his korban nazir, that has to go to nadava because it is only dedicated for one person. You wouldn't be able to use it for other nazir. Okay, says the Gemara as follows: Amar Rabbi Yosi, ad da'anataman. While I was still in Bavel, Shmais kal Rav Yehuda shal l'Shmuel. I heard the voice of Rav Yehuda asking Shmuel the following question: Hifrish shikle v'meis. If a person separated his shekel v'meis and then he dropped dead, so what happens? What happens to that shekel? Amalei, so he says yivlu nadava. It should be used as a nadava. Moisar asir sa'ifa shalai. The excess of the asir sa'ifa, which is the din is that the Kohen Gadol would bring a minchas chavitin every single day, and that was an asir sa'ifa. So the Kohen Gadol would separate, and that came from his own funds. He would separate every day an amount of money to bring his own mincha every single day. Asir sa'ifa shalai, that mincha, what does he do with the excess funds for that on any particular day? Rabbi Yochanan says, Yochanan Yam HaMelech, he has to throw it into the sea, into the Dead Sea. It cannot be used for anything else. Rabbi Lazar says, Yiblu Nadava can be used for a Nadava. Says the Gemara, hold on a second. Masisa Pligal, Rabbi Yochanan. Our Mishnah is an absolute rejection of Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said that the Asir Seifa of the Kohen Gadol has to be thrown into the Yam HaMelech, and the Mishnah says that it can be used for an adava. So what's up? Says the Gemara, no, Moser, and furthermore, Moser Shekalim Chulin, the leftovers of Shekalim are going to be Chulin. Moser Asir Seifa, the leftovers of Asir Seifa, Moser Kani Zavas, Moser Kani Elders, Chatzos Hashem, Mutar, Moser Nadava. Meaning all of these things are in Nadava. That's the kasha from the Mishnah. Says Gemara, Ma Abel Rabbi Yochanan. How does Rabbi Yochanan explain this? Pater La, so he explains this. Moser Asir Seifa shel minchas chayte shel kol yishal. Now, when the Mishnah is talking about the Aseres Ifa, that's not talking about the minchas chavitin of the Kohen Gadol. It is talking about the mincha of a chote that couldn't afford a karban, so he would bring an Aseres Ifa. And if there were leftovers from that, that would be a chatas. That would be a chatas and would end up as an adava. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yosi Amar. Rabbi Yosi tells us, Al da alil Abba Barba. For this, they had to call Abba Barba back to the Beis Medrash. Apparently, Abba Barba was sick and elderly. That he was summoned back to the Beis Medrash. This is the father of Shmuel. That's Abba Barba. That's the father of Shmuel. Was called back to the Beis Medrash to deal with this question. He was the expert. The in Amrim, because they in Bavel say the following: Pesach mishtana l'shem shlamim. How do you know that Pesach turns into a shlamim? The pasuk says, "V'im min hatzoin karbana lezevach shlamim." The pasuk says, and if from the flock his karban is coming lezevach shlamim, it'll be shechted as a shlamim. Right? That's the pasuk. So we have a number of words here that we have to figure out. What exactly they mean? Kol shehu min hatzain ba shlamim. Anything that is from tzain is going to be used as shlamim, meaning that Pesach, the current Pesach, which is from tzain, could be used as a shlamim, and then hayishon and Abba Barba, and then Hesivan and Abba Barba objected to this, saying Harei Ola Min Hatzain. The problem with this is that it also says Min Hatzain, from the sheep. Says the Karban Aida on this, Minalan de Karev Dafka Shlam. How do you know that this is specifically a Shlamim? Dima Karev Nami Ola. Maybe it could be brought as an Ola. Meaning, when the pasuk says V'im Min Hatzain Karbanai Lezevach Shlamim, so it could be a shlamim. So he says it could also be Harei Ola Min Hatzain, but an Ola also comes from tzain. Who says that this is necessarily talking about a Korban Pesach turning into a shlamim? An Ola is also from tzain. How do you know that this is talking about Pesach? Says the Gemara, no, you're 100% right. An Ola could be from tzain as well, and then it would tell you nothing about Korban Pesach. But says the Gemara, Davar she'enu ba ela min hatzain. There is only one korban that can only be from tzain, and that would be the Korban Pesach. Yatzaz ola shehi afilu ba min habakar, but a regular ola could even be from bakar. So hayisvan harei asham. It says Abba Barba, that's not true. There is an asham. An asham could also be from an asham can also only come from tzain. So Amar Rabbi Bun Bar Kana says Rabbi Bun Bar Kana min hatzain. When it says min hatzain, davar shu ba mikol hatzain, something that includes all tzain, meaning both sheep and goats. Yatsa asham she'enu ba ela min ha'elim bilvad. But an asham can only be from a ram. It can only come from the flock of a ram. Meaning the word tzain doesn't necessarily mean sheep. It means flock. Keves means a sheep, and ayil means a ram. And min hatzain means only from the tzain, and that would be it would be min hatzain. It is from the tzain, but it includes the thing that includes all kinds of tzain. Says the Gemara. A further question. But every other time that the Torah says the word min, in the case of min hatzain, that is a limitation, meaning it's an exclusion. V'kan at mar min lerabos. Now you're going to say min hatzon means that it includes all kinds of tzon. So Amar Rabbi Mana says Rabbi Mana hachinami min lemayit. Now the word min here is also exclusionary. Min hatzon meaning as opposed to min habakar. Miut she'ena ba ben shtei shanim, because it excludes an animal that is older than 2 years. Miut she'ena ba nekeva, and it also excludes an animal that is female, meaning you can only bring it excludes a male, meaning an animal that is not female. That is excluded because the Korban Pesach cannot be from a Zachar, it can only be from an Nekeva. Says the Gemara, V'gabe Asham, with regards to an Asham, Nami min lemaitu. You also found that min is lemait. V'she'ena ba ela min ha'elim bilvat. Because it only comes from Elim. It also comes. It only comes from Elim. So maybe we're talking about the Asham. Says Gemara, Hayisfon Arabat challenges us. V'haksiv didn't the Torah also tell us? Vim min hatzon karbanai min hakvasim oy min haizim la'ola. The pasuk says that im min hatzon karbanai, if his korban comes from the flock, from the sheep and from the goats la'ola. Me'ata, from here, Mosar Pesach ba la'ola. You could assume that the Mosar Pesach is going to come from the ola. So we have exactly the same limit, that it could, not just that, before we said maybe an ola can turn into a shlomim. Now we're saying no, maybe it's the Pesach that turns into an ola. How do you know that that's not what happens? So Amar Rabbi Abban says, Rabbi Abban, Mishanin davar shu la'achila davar shu la'achila. Now we compare things that are for achila to things that are for achila. Things that are eaten are compared to things that are eaten. That's a much simpler comparison, as opposed to so a Pesach to a Shlomim, that makes sense. But a Pesach to an Ola, if we are choosing which way to learn this, we'd much rather say the thing that is similar. Ve'in mishanin davar shu ba la'achila l'davar she'ena la'achila. We don't say something that is for eating to something that is not for eating. Amar Rabbi Yossi says, Rabbi Yossi, ba Rabbi Bun, the son of Rabbi Abban, mishanin kachim kalim l'shem kachim kalim, ve'in mishanin kachim kalim l'shem kachim kachim. Likewise, we are not going to transfer a kachim kalim, meaning lighter forms of korbanos, to heavier forms of korbanos. We're going to keep it in the same lane of kachim kalim to kachim kalim, not make it into kachim kachim, which is what an ola would be. Okay. Says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, says Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yochanan Amar, sorry, Al da alil Rabbi Chanina. For this, they had to call Rabbi Chanina back to the base madrash. The in Amrin, because they say in Babel, Ein haPesach mishtana l'shem shlamim, ela im kein shachtel l'shem shlamim, that you cannot turn a Pesach into a shlamim unless it is shechted for the sake of a shlamim. Va'ani Omer, but I say, I feel a shachtel l'shem ola. Even if you shechted as an ola, it still works as a shlamim, meaning a Pesach that was not brought for Korban Pesach for whatever reason, right? It was lost, it was switched, but it, like we learned in Maseches Pesachim, lots of reasons that the Korban Pesach wasn't brought as a Pesach, but it is now going to be brought as a shlamim. So I feel shachtel l'shem ola, even if you shechted as an ola, even if it's shaloi lishma, it turns into a shlamim, no matter what. So Amar Rabbi Ela, says Rabbi Ela, Taimed Rabbi Yochanan, the reason for Rabbi Yochanan is if it is from the tzon as is korban to be a zevach shlamim. Kol shehu zevach ba l'shlamim, anything that is slaughtered, meaning anything that's sacrificed from the tzon, meaning the Korban Pesach that is not in a Torah time, turns into a shlamim. Doesn't require your intention in any which way. So umishtane lemachshavas psul, and it can be switched into the machshavas psul. Heach avida. How could you switch it to be something that is puzzle? Meaning, how could your thought invalidate it? Shachtel l'shem ola. If you shechted it for an ola, al menas lisruk dam lemachar. If you shechted it with the intention to throw the blood tomorrow. Meaning, if you shechted it with the intention to have you have to put the blood on the mizbech today, and you had intention that you were going to only throw the blood on on the mizbeach tomorrow, meaning you thought completely wrong. Says the Gemara, Mikol Makom Psulhu. Either which way, that's going to be puzzle. Meaning it doesn't make a difference whether you did that with the intention of an Ola or an intention of a Shlamim. If you shechted with the intention of doing the avodah wrong, then it doesn't make a difference. Says the Gemara, in Tamar Mishtalan Machshavas Psul. In Tamar, if you wanted to say Mishtalan Machshavas Psul, that it turns to a machshava of Psul, that it is that your thought could make the korban puzzle. So pigul, with regards to making it pigul, in Tamar Emishtalan Machshavas Psul, in Tamar, if you say it does not change with your intention, that you cannot change it into a psul, meaning thinking that it's an ola doesn't change it into an ola, pigul, then with regards to pigul, how would it ever be made into pigul? Meaning, you have a catch-22 here. Unless you could make the korban puzzle through machshava, you wouldn't be able to make it into pigul, because in order for pigul to exist, you need to have every other part of the korban done perfectly. So, if you offered the ola, if you offered your pesach with the intention of it being an ola, then you wouldn't be able to have it then pigul wouldn't exist, and unless you want to say that the machshava is unable to change it, in which case then pigul also doesn't exist, and the Gemara leaves us as a open kasha with a paradox that the Rishonim and Achronim in Zvachim deal with exactly how this makes sense. Okay, final case, or second to final case on our Mishnah. What happens if you shefted your korban pesach lishmai for the sake of the korban pesach? You had in mind that this is the case that we dealt with in the middle of Psachim. You had in mind that it was going to be for the sake of Pesach and not for the sake of Pesach. Any other day of the year. Meaning you took korban, which you had said is a korban Pesach, and then you shefted it before Pesach. So you were thinking beforehand, I'm going to use this as a Pesach, and then at the end you imagine, I can't use this as a Pesach. So what do you do here? Rabbi Bun Bar Chia b'Shem Shmuel. They said the name of Shmuel Shmuel Bar Abba. Mikevan she'ein loy shem nasu keshafta lishmai v'shelo lishmai b'shtika. Since it does not have meaning, once he says at the end of the shechita, he says, "I'm not doing this as a korban pesach." So it's b'shtika shelo lishmai. It's considered as if you shefted it shelo lishmai without, meaning not for the sake of a pesach, b'shtika without stipulating anything. V'hu kasher, and it's going to be a good korban, meaning because you didn't intend to shecht it as a pesach the whole way through. You shechted it by the end as a shlamim. So the Gemara then questions this. Amarle, so Rabun questions. They said to Rabun as follows: Im keinhu, if what you are saying is correct, I feel shechted lishmai al manas l'zrok dam shelo lishmai. That even if you shechted it for the sake of a pesach, before it was time to offer the pesach, and with the intention of throwing the blood on the mizbech shelo lishmai, meaning the end of the avoda, yaseh mishar rishon k'shefta lishmai. Then it should be as if it was shefta lishmai the whole way through, v'shelo lishmai b'shtika, and with a silence with regards to its lo lishmai, v'hei kosher, and it should be kosher, meaning the shelo lishmai intention should be able to uproot the lishmai intention, meaning as long as there was something at the end of it. So Amar Rabbi Abba Mari, says Rabbi Abba Mari, what do we mean when we say bishtika it's going to be kosher? Oy never bishtika puzzle. Perhaps if you shefted it in silence, it could also be puzzle. Meaning, when we say bishtika, sometimes it means b'shtika it's kasha, and sometimes it means b'shtika it's puzzle. It depends on where the shtika is and what the intention is. Shtika is not an overriding factor. Shtika is like it's a zero. It doesn't necessarily change. Depends on where exactly it is. If it is before or afterwards, that would determine it. And I know that this is very tricky sugyas. So shout out to everybody for holding on. And Be'ez Hashem, we will go weiter on Shabbos and Matzah Shabbos. Looking forward, please God, to seeing everybody then.